frequencies. And we make several more videos, and we film the destruction of hundreds of microorganisms. And about this time, we meet a cancer researcher, and we show them these videos. And this results in an invitation to spend 4 months in a cancer research lab trying to shatter cancer cells. This is our setup in the lab. You can see the microscope with cancer cells on it. Here's the plasma tube, and here's my little frequency control box. So first we attack pancreatic cancer. Take a good look at this slide, because the next one will look quite different. After we treat these cells, they change their shape and size, and they begin to grow long, rope-like structures out the sides. They look something like antennas. I call them bioantennas for biological antennas. It's as if the cancer cells are trying to tune in to our signal. It also turns out this is the beginning of a process of destruction for cancer cells. We now know that cancer is vulnerable between the frequencies of 100,000 hertz and 300,000 hertz. So now we attack leukemia cells. Leukemia cell number 1 tries to grow a copy of itself, but the new cell is shattered into dozens of fragments and scattered across the slide. Leukemia cell number 2 then hyperinflates and also dies. Leukemia cell number 3 then tries to make another cancer cell. The new cell is shattered and the original cell dies. But killing a handful of leukemia cells is not enough for a patient. What kind of numbers can we do? In repeated controlled laboratory experiments, independently assayed by the 2 top experts, we killed an average of 25% to 42% of the leukemia cells, as high as 60%. They also determined that we slowed the growth rate of the cancer by as much as 65%, so a double effect. Now we attack ovarian cancer cells. This is a more distant shot. Here you see brackets coming up around the cells, showing groups of ovarian cancer cells which are being destroyed. You can see by the end of the video that a great many ovarian cancer cells were destroyed. Now we attack pancreatic cancer once more. In the center of the screen is a clump of pancreatic cancer cells like a microtumor under the microscope. We turn on our electronic signals and the tumor shrinks and is broken up. The cells are disconnecting, disaggregating, the opposite of forming a tumor. And some of the cells are destroyed. In our most recent work, we attacked the deadly organism MRSA. MRSA is particularly dangerous because it's resistant to many common antibiotics. Thousands of people die every year from MRSA. They have drugs for it, but they have very toxic side effects. We found that our electronic signals could actually eliminate antibiotic resistance in MRSA. Then by adding a very small amount of a common antibiotic, we were able to kill MRSA and slow its growth rate. Since I was a 17-year-old high school student with twin interests in both music and science, I never imagined the two would come together in a cancer research lab. I now believe that the future cancer treatment rooms for children will be a very different place. It will be a pleasant place where children gather and make new friends. They probably won't even know they're sick. They'll draw pictures, color in their books, play with their toys, all the while unaware that above them are beautiful blue, pinkish plasma lights emanating healing, pulsing electric fields, shattering their cancer painlessly and non-toxically, one cell at a time. Thank you.
It's a sign of respect for the man tonight in the hospital. We don't know exactly why Damar Hamlin collapsed last night, but at the same time, there are concerns about cases like this. Young athletes collapsing on the field of heart problems, and there has been a dramatic increase in this. You're not imagining it. So what is this? Cardiologist Peter McCullough and researcher Pangis Polycretis looked into this trend in Europe, European sports leagues. They found that prior to COVID and the COVID-19 vaccines, there were roughly 29 cardiac arrests in those European sports leagues per year. Since the Vax campaign began, there have been more than 1,500 total cardiac arrests in those leagues, and 2/3 of those were fatal. Does that prove something? We don't know, but you should know that. Dr. Peter McCullough is a cardiologist. He's also the author of Courage to Face COVID-19. He joins us tonight to assess. Doctor, thank you so much for coming on. So this is one of those phenomena that people who use social media are aware of because there are videos of it floating around, but I don't know when the last time I heard, if ever, an American public health authority address this directly and tell people, what is this? Is this real? Tell us your findings from your actual study on this.
The concern here is that athletes at a professional level, Tucker, are carefully screened for underlying heart disease. The leading cause of sudden death on the playing field is hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. The athletes are screened for this. There are rare conditions, genetic abnormalities in heart rhythm that can present. But sudden cardiac death should be a very unusual phenomenon. And as your report indicates, it's extremely unusual in the NFL since the high level of scrutiny. There's a differential diagnosis that doctors go through when this happens. I watched it live, and then I watched the replay as a cardiologist. To me, it looked like he made a hard tackle. There was head and neck impact. But he got up, he clapped his hands, and then he fell over backwards. It looked like a primary cardiac arrest. Everything that was done on the field looked perfect. I think the duration of CPR and resuscitation is going to be in a window where he can have neurologic recovery. The issue is what caused it. And the concern based on our research is that COVID-19 can cause myocarditis or heart damage. The heart damage in some cases can be asymptomatic, and the initial presentation can be a cardiac arrest. There's other things in the differential, genetic abnormalities of heart rhythm disturbance, hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, a spinal cord type of interaction with the heart. But I think the leading concern here is vaccine-induced myocarditis if indeed he's taken the vaccine. And boy, the family, the Bills doctors, and the current doctors at University of Cincinnati Medical Center have a public health obligation to tell us if he's taken the vaccine.
I think that's fair in the coming days. Now, the CDC, it seems to me, since the absolute numbers of heart incidents among young people are dramatically up across the West, and the CDC, as far as I know, has not been honest enough to address this. They sent out a tweet the other day saying, you know, you may be struggling with blood clots if you're a young athlete. I don't remember athletes struggling with young blood clots. It seems to me like they're trying to tell us this is normal. Is it normal for young athletes to have life-threatening blood clots?
We should never have our agencies try to normalize side effects. The FDA says the vaccines cause myocarditis and heart damage. Autopsy studies show it can be and is fatal. The same is true for blood clots and neurologic damage. Our agencies should be protecting the health of Americans, and safety is job one. I'm disappointed that they're minimizing it.
Yeah, I mean...
He's actually stopping the game here because of an injury to a Sheffield United player, and there was sufficient concern. Well, you can see why. A horrible sight, and attention urgently needed.
كل السلامة لكوليبالي، كل السلامة لكوليبالي، كل السلامة لكوليبالي، كل السلامة لكوليبالي الذي يعاني منه كوليبالي في أرضية الملعب، الذي يعاني منه كوليبالي في أرضية الملعب. عثمان كوليبالي، الدعوات من خلف الشاشات لعثمان كوليبالي، اللاعب اللي يتم إسعافه في هذه الأثناء، اللاعب اللي يتم إسعافه في هذه الدقائق. في نادي الوكرة، وقد يؤثر عليهم. سليمة إن شاء الله، سليمة يا كوليبالي، سليمة يا كوليبالي، سليمة يا كوليبالي. بسم الله الله أكبر، بسم الله الله أكبر، بسم الله الله أكبر على عثمان كوليبالي اللاعب المصري. دعوات من خلف الشاشات.
It's not what any of us want to see, and everybody's around him, and just hope that he's going to be okay.
So we'll take another break here in Cincinnati.
In the middle of a game, Ariel Russia.
Oh dear, no, it's not.
He collapsed.
Well, tough second assignment from you, boss. Vladimir Petkovic in front of 50,000 fans.
Dear colleagues and supporters, we declare that Pfizer, Moderna, BioNTech, Janssen and AstraZeneca and their enablers willfully withheld and omitted crucial safety and effectiveness information from patients and physicians and should be immediately indicted for fraud. We know that shortly after administration of these products, thousands of people have died. And although correlation isn't causation, reasonable criterion have been applied to examine the relationship between injections and the events, and it's absolutely clear-cut that these are the cause of death. Mechanistically, the design of these products was knowingly deficient in a number of ways. First, they caused the expression in the human body of toxic virus spike protein. Unlike what they told us that it would stay in the injection site, they distribute widely around the body. There is no built-in limit to the amount of toxic spike protein that can be made or for how long it is made, and that's the cause of the toxicity. Turning to the clinical trials, there is evidence of questionable practices all around. For example, several of the studies were clearly unblinded while they were ongoing. And also, in a number of cases, subjects were removed from the database prior to statistical analysis in a way that is suggestive of fraud. We were given blanket assurances time and again by all of the companies about the benign safety profile of their products, even as the products rolled out, and in the earliest weeks, they must have known this was not true. It appears that these products provide little or no protection from the virus that they sought to protect us from. And finally, they cannot claim lack of anticipatory knowledge because the companies and the FDA knew that products of this type would produce many toxicities.
Hey everybody, update on the Travis Scott concert situation in Texas. So for those of you who don't know, originally when this all happened, a bunch of kids either collapsed or died suddenly, and we're talking kids aged like 12 to young adult age of like 18 to 20. When that all happened, I got a call from someone who was a direct relative of an 18-year-old girl who was one of the people who collapsed but did not die. She spent the next, I think it was about 4 to 6 weeks in and out of hospital, being put on medication, being run on tests until she died of organ failure. After that, I never heard back from the family member or anybody else in the family until 2 days after the Monday Night Football incident where he dropped suddenly on the field and they canceled the game. All of a sudden, I got a call from Texas from a different number, and it was the same relative. And he told me he had a really hard time getting a hold of me, but he had a lot to tell me. He said that after his family member passed away, the 18-year-old female, Moderna, because she was given the Moderna vaccine, basically came and paid the family a whole bunch of money to keep quiet, and also relocated them to a different part of Texas, gave them new phones, new numbers, new addresses, new identities, almost like a witness protection program. And they were told they had basically two options. Either they were going to get destroyed in the media and destroyed in other ways if they spoke up about this, or they could take the deal, take the money, take the new identities, and basically just help them cover this up, help them sweep it under the rug. Well, that didn't sit well with this guy, so he came and told me about it, and I told you guys about it. Since then, people have been questioning the veracity of this, and then I got contacted by a female researcher. I don't know if she wants me to say her name, but she gave me corroborating government and military documents that prove in writing that what I described is the standard operating procedure for military, especially when military and government know they are killing civilians. They know it is against the law, and they have multiple remedies to deal with this. And the most common is what we described: a payoff, a relocation, a new identity, and sweeping everything under the rug. This is a huge story because this is not even just the tip of the iceberg. This is like a little speck. There's thousands and thousands and thousands of cases like this just in the United States. And if you go around the world, you're talking about millions of people whose lives were affected or even ended by these injections. And every single government official knows, every pharmaceutical official knows. And if you think it's an accident that Fauci just retired at the end of 2022 after decades and decades on there just because he's at a certain age and whatever other, no, he got out of there because he knows we're about to move into phase 3, holding these people accountable. And they can only plug so many leaks in the dam before the cracks overwhelm, explode, and all this information comes flooding out. And I'm going to keep chipping away at that dam, and there's nothing they can do about it. This is exactly what's going on, and I'm going to even include the documents that were sent to me. So I would love to see the government deny this, and I'd love to see them try to discredit this. This is what's happening. This is how Moderna, Pfizer, if you recall, Pfizer paid out billions in a fine for misleading and false advertising, which ultimately caused the death of all kinds of people. So if you think this is beneath them, or you think this is beneath the government, or you think this is beneath the military, well, wake up, ladies and gentlemen. This is the reality of the situation, and it's only going to get a lot worse from here as they try to pass laws to make videos like this illegal for me to even tell you what's going on.
A 17-year-old Bartlett High School cross-country runner is recovering in Florida after undergoing emergency heart surgery. Gabe Higginbottom had just completed a race Saturday in Pensacola when he started complaining of chest pains.
As WREG's Melissa Moon reports, he underwent a 3-hour surgery, and now teammates, coaches, and the community are praying for his swift return to health.
He ran the race. He finished the race. He ran well. When he was done, he was tired.
But Chris Harmon, boys coach for Bartlett Cross Country and Track, says aside from the normal exhaustion, something just wasn't right with 17-year-old Gabe Higginbottom after competing Saturday in Pensacola, Florida.
He started complaining about his chest hurting and kept complaining. When we went to the trainer's tent, you know, everybody initially thinks because it's hot, it's heat exhaustion, you know, so give him some ice, but, you know, he's still complaining about his chest.
Gabe was eventually transported to a heart and vascular hospital in Gainesville, 5 hours away, for what Harmon was told was a 3-hour emergency heart surgery.
Figured out that he had an artery blocked and fixed it, and now they're just trying to figure out what caused it.
Gabe is recovering, but news of what happened came like a bolt out of the blue to teammates and supporters.
They're cross-country runners, so these guys are just slim, trim, they're fit, and so to see that there was something there, yeah, it kind of shocked everybody.
Joe Moore's 16-year-old son Andrew is on the team with Gabe, and Moore says what happened will make him take a closer look at his son's condition after he crosses the finish line.
But now it may be a little bit more of watching them just a little bit closer, seeing if there's anything, just little, anything that's not normal.
Moore and other supporters immediately took steps to help Gabe and his family through this crisis.
A few of us got together and we decided to do a GoFundMe page, and so we started that up, and it's just blossomed from there.
Melissa Moon, WREG, News Channel 3.
And we reached Gabe's mother this morning, but she said her son was about to undergo more tests and she didn't have time to talk. If you want to help, you can go to Running for Gabe on GoFundMe.
Hello, I'm Dr. Aisha Malik and I'm a GP in the Midlands. I'm recording this video as I've been concerned that so many patients have reported side effects since having an mRNA injection, including the boosters. Patients are reporting many symptoms, including myocarditis, which is a serious heart condition, and menstrual irregularities. I've discussed this with other GPs and medical specialists across the country who are also observing a similar pattern on a regular basis. Many doctors have spent years reassuring patients about the safety of vaccines, but in the case of the COVID vaccines, there is something different. If you as a patient have developed new symptoms, consider if and when you had the vaccination or booster and when your symptoms started. This is also a question doctors should be asking. There is international concern amongst the medical profession, and studies are also showing that there are more cases of adverse reactions than there should be. We want our patients to stay safe. When we became doctors, we took an oath to do no harm, and that oath needs to be honoured. And that's why I, alongside other medical colleagues, are asking the government to halt the vaccination programme and investigate these serious concerns.
The important thing to realize is that North American science spent 15 years figuring out what to do with the next COVID. It was back 2002, 2003, the original SARS-CoV-1 occurred. And so all sorts of experiments went on to determine what would be a useful response were something similar to occur. And the research was done. Research was all done by 2015, 2016. And DARPA, D-A-R-P-A, the American research arm of the U.S. military, it specifically knew and specifically recommended and passed the information on to the CDC that ivermectin in particular was the absolute #1 product to be used in the event of a coronavirus pandemic. It was fully known that ivermectin, and certainly hydroxychloroquine as well, were highly antiviral and immune modulatory. And those two things were the key, to modulate the immune response, plus to be antiviral as well. Those elements were both totally proven in vitro and in vivo with animals, so that it was known, and of course we knew it was completely safe for humans because these medications had been used for 35 to 40 years in humans. And so that's what was sitting there ready to be used at the next pandemic.
But listen, play that Kennedy speech.
For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised. No expenditure is questioned, no rumor is printed, no secret is revealed. No president should fear public scrutiny of his program, for from that scrutiny comes understanding, and from that understanding comes support or opposition, and both are necessary.